Adding bourbon to Coke, whether it being Jack Daniels or even George Dickel, makes the resulting cocktail 10 times stickier than the Coke alone. I learned that when I was 11 years old and had it dumped all over me from the upper deck. It was a result of one of the most dramatic endings to a sporting event I can ever remember. It was 1985 and I was at Legion Field in Birmingham, Alabama, watching the Iron Bowl. What a game. What a time to be alive.
This is 52 yards into the breeze. Not strong, but there's some. The kick is up. Long enough. It's long enough, and it's good! He made it!
1985 was a great year to be alive in America. What was a slow walk out of a recession in the early 80s was turning into an all-out sprint. The stock market was up, inflation was down, and the job market was improving. But it wasn't just the economy that made 1985 so great. It was the music, the movies, the television, and even the sports. In short, it was everything. That summer, Pete Rose broke Ty Cobb's all-time hit record, and the Royals-Cardinals World Series with a 7-game classic. Villanova shocked Georgetown in arguably the game that defines the underdog theme of March Madness. And in the NBA, some rookie named Jordan won the slam dunk contest wearing shoes that bore his name. In college football, it wasn't until November 30th that a game would be played that would capture the attention of fans across the country and make 1985 one of the greatest sports years ever. If you ask a cartographer to map out the coordinates of latitude 33.51 and longitude 86.84, he or she will find the address 400 Graymont Avenue, Birmingham, Alabama 35204. This is Legion Field, what is affectionately known as the Old Gray Lady. 2 days after Thanksgiving 1985, at 7:30 Greenwich Mean Time, the American Broadcasting Company took the Old Gray Lady into the homes across America. In 1985, ESPN was still in its infancy compared to what it would become. The average number of channels available to an American household was 18, and most households actually received far less. Having your team on network television was important in 1985. Most people were watching sitcoms like The Cosby Show and Cheers, and what was considered NBC's Thursday night powerhouse. Friday nights were for watching Crockett and Tubbs on South Beach, driving around in a Ferrari catching bad guys. The late night time slot on weekends was dedicated to the new frenzy of music videos. Friday night videos on NBC included an iconic opening with a hostage tied to a pole with a microphone cord. Night tracks on TBS showed music videos until 3 o'clock in the morning. But sports were still finding their place. Only big games made it to network television. But November 30th was just that. It rained that morning on the fan bases driving up on I-20, 59, and 65. But there was a slow clearing as we reached the afternoon portion of tailgating on Graymont Avenue. And then Mother Nature cleared the sky totally, and a comfortable 68 degrees settled in for the 2:30 kickoff. The first play from scrimmage was a handoff to a man that needs no introduction. Vincent Edward Bo Jackson is obviously one of the most iconic athletes in the history of our great country. He was the 8th of 10 children and grew up in Bessemer, Alabama, where he attended McAdory High School. 7 days from this exact moment, Bo Jackson would fly to New York City to become the 51st winner of the Heisman Trophy. To add more intrigue to this game, it was being played on Bo's 23rd birthday. Bo would go on to play Major League Baseball for the Kansas City Royals. He would announce his interest in a hobby that turned out to be playing running back for the Oakland Raiders. This would lead to the most memorable ad campaigns in the history of American advertising. The Nike-led Bo Knows would celebrate America's most well-known dual-sport athlete. Growing up in the 80s, I would be remiss if I did not mention that he was probably my favorite Nintendo Tecmo Bowl player. Number 97 flying in to make the tackle was none other than Cornelius Bennett, who was affectionately known as Biscuit. Biscuit was a 3-time All-American at Alabama. As a senior, he would win the Lombardi Trophy and earn SEC Player of the Year honors. He was a number 2 overall pick of the 1987 NFL Draft by the Indianapolis Colts and was quickly traded to the Buffalo Bills, where he would be the centerpiece of a defense that would make 5 trips to the Super Bowl. In 2005, he would be inducted into the College Football Hall of Fame. We went to half with Alabama holding a 16-10 lead after touchdowns by Craig Turner for Alabama and Bo Jackson for Auburn. There would be no more scoring until an incredibly dramatic fourth quarter. As the crowd rushed to the concession stand during the halftime break, they were greeted by something that was new to the world. If searching for a mixer or just a thirst quencher, they were introduced to 2 new Coca-Cola products. Cherry Coke was introduced in 1985 as the first flavored Coke variation ever. The Coke executives were hoping that America would agree with Alabama native Lionel Richie that Cherry Coke was outrageous! But something larger was happening with Coke in 1985. We actually lost Coke. It was replaced by something creatively called New Coke, which actually tastes like flat Coke. The master marketers decided to run ads claiming that this was something that we had asked for. It didn't work. People hated it. Then one day, while lying on the couch watching General Hospital, Peter Jennings broke in and announced,
"The old Coke is coming back."
And all was right with the world. "1985 was a great year for music. Growing up in the 80s, I might be a little biased, but it's one of the greatest years ever inside of probably one of the greatest decades ever. Smash hits like Dire Straits' Money for Nothing will become iconic and remain popular in sports venues for decades to come. Starship's We Built This City would also become a classic with all types of sports fans. Tears for Fears' Everybody Wants to Rule the World would be used in movies and television still to this day. And Madonna's Like a Virgin hit number 1 in January of that year. For Madonna, 1985 was a busy year. She would also have her photos released in Playboy and Penthouse magazines. But the biggest song of the year was We Are the World, part of the USA for Africa fundraising efforts to fight poverty on the African continent. The list of artists to perform on the single was as big and diverse as Kenny Rogers, Dionne Warwick, Bob Dylan, Tina Turner, and Michael Jackson. On April 5th of that year, at 10:50 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, 8,000 radio stations across America would play the song simultaneously. To my knowledge, the only time anything like this has ever been tried in the radio business, whether satellite or terrestrial. An adrenaline-filled battle in the third quarter resulted in a violent scoreless defensive slog, but this set up for a dramatic back and forth in the fourth quarter. In fact, there was not another score until the 7-minute mark in the game, and then the lead would change hands 4 times in those final 7 minutes. The fourth quarter was kicked off with an explosive run by Gene Jelks off right tackle. The freshman running back attended Emma Sanson High School in Gadsden, Alabama, where he won the state championship in 1984. Jelks would finish the game with 192 yards rushing that included a 74-yard scamper in the fourth quarter that was just part of the unfolding drama. He also made a 14-yard catch in the final drive that was essential to Alabama's win. The man tackling Bobby Humphrey in this photo is Tracy Quentin Rocker, who was one of the greatest defensive linemen to ever play at Auburn. He was one of the most feared defensive linemen to ever play in the Southeastern Conference. As a production time of this video, he is currently defensive line coach at the Philadelphia Eagles. He entered the College Football Hall of Fame in 2004. In 1988, Tracy Rocker won the Lombardi and the Outland Trophy in the same year, the first SEC player to do so. He was inducted into the Alabama State Hall of Fame in 2005. Rocker was voted to Auburn's Team of the Century in 1993. After a Mike Shula interception in the end zone, Auburn would drive 80 yards with a heavy dose of runs and one single completed screen pass to Bo Jackson. This culminated with a Bo Jackson dive over the top into the end zone. A missed extra point by Auburn that could have been catastrophic was saved by a 12-man on the field infraction by Alabama. Alabama then fumbled the next kickoff and it would roll out of bounds. The momentum was clearly with Auburn, but when they needed it, Gene Jelks took a tall sweep against the grain and galloped 74 yards past the Auburn secondary. The touchdown would push Alabama back in front to a 22-17 lead. What had started with animosity and excitement in the fall daylight had shifted into tension and anxiety under the November night sky. Auburn would take the ensuing kickoff and drive to the 1-yard line, where Reggie Ware would pound the ball into the end zone with 1:06 left in the game. The score would carry the Tigers to a 23-22 lead. Head coach Pat Dye would elect to go for two. A Pat Washington screen pass to Bo Jackson will be knocked down by Cornelius Bennett, leaving a 1-point difference in the game. This would set up the drive that would culminate with one of the most famous plays in the history of this incredible rivalry. Now, movies were important in 1985. We made a time machine out of a DeLorean. We went to Moscow and knocked out Drago. The Goonies found One-Eyed Willie's treasure, and Pee-wee had a big adventure. We also went to detention, and everyone danced. Hollywood had fun in 1985. Nothing Hollywood can create can match the drama of a late fall college football game that starts in the full sunlight and ends in darkness. As the shadows of the old gray lady gave way to the darkness only filled with the lights from the Legion Field Stadium lights, the buzz in the stadium was only growing. The ending of our movie would be summarized by 3 plays and the 4 players involved. Let's look at each one in isolation. It was 4th and 4. Bear Bryant's successor and former New York Giants coach Ray Perkins dialed up a reverse for wide receiver Al Bell. Star wide receiver Greg Richardson would say years later that the moment he heard the play come into the huddle, he thought they could win the game. Al Bell played his high school football at Crenshaw High School in Los Angeles, where he was an all-city wide receiver in 1981 before heading to Coffeyville Community College in Kansas. Crenshaw was also home to Tracy Lauren Marrow, better known as the rapper Ice-T of Law & Order SVU fame. 8-time Major League Baseball All-Star and 4-time World Series champion Darryl Strawberry also went to Crenshaw. My grandfather always said you win football games in the trenches, the blocking up front. But he would admit, if you had to choose the most important block ever thrown in the history of the Iron Bowl, it was thrown by a quarterback. Alabama loses the game without this reverse by Al Bell, and that reverse needed the block by Mike Shula. Brother of David, son of famed Miami Dolphins coach Don, Mike went to a private Roman Catholic college prep high school named Christopher Columbus, where he won all-state honors and led his team to the state championship game. On May 9, 2003, he would become the 26th head coach of the Crimson Tide. The play earned the first down and stopped the clock, and more importantly, changed the entire feel for the game. Gregory Lamar Richardson, still to this day, is one of the fastest players to ever play for the Crimson Tide. Richardson was always a deep threat and a fan favorite. The 3-year starter and 4-year letterman would also be tasked with punt returns for Bama that year. With 6 seconds left in the game, Richardson ran an underneath route. He was open and Shula found him. That was the easy part. With no timeouts left, Richardson had to drag the Auburn cornerback Lavelle Bivens to the sidelines to stop the clock, or the game would be over. He barely made it. Van Lee Tiffin was born in Tupelo, Mississippi. He lived in Red Bay, Alabama, and attended Red Bay High School, where he was a USA Today High School All-American in 1982. He also holds the Alabama school record for never missing an extra point. He converted 135 of them. He also holds the school record for the longest field goal with a 57-yard boot going into the halftime against Texas A&M in 1985. Frank Broyles said his heart won't stand it. I wonder what Tiffin's heart was doing. Some fans in the stadium closed their eyes, and others just looked away. Everyone braced themselves for either heartbreak or ecstasy. America leaned into their television sets. He didn't know it at the moment, but Van Tiffin was seconds away from becoming the centerpiece of the most famous piece of art that would hang in the homes and offices of Alabama fans across the nation. So here we are, what would forever be known in Alabama lore as the kick.
He missed a 52-yarder earlier, wide left with the wind. This is 52 yards into the breeze. Not strong, but there's some. The kick is up. Long enough. It's long enough, and it's good! He made it!